Good morning, class. Welcome back. We are going to be writing three column notes to show you how to make an approximation of an irrational number. We start by writing our name on the top right hand corner and then writing the title. So go ahead and get a piece of paper and then fold it into three columns and write that. Place that behind your binder on behind your math. Step 1. Find the two perfect squares your number is in between. And the two perfect squares that this number is in between, we know that the perfect squares are the square root of 1, the square root of 4, and the square root of 9. Those are the first three perfect squares. The approximation of the square root of 6 is in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. Do not write this down, it's just a review of what are perfect squares. So perfect squares is when we have the square root of a number and it equals a whole number. So like the square root of 1 equals 1, that's a whole number. And we know that because 1 square equals to 1. So 1 times 1 equals to 1. These are the other perfect squares. The square root of 4 is 2 because 2 squared is 4. And we know this because, this squaring a number is multiplying it by itself. And that's how we know those are perfect squares. And if you see they go in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you square those and that's how you find the perfect squares. Now we move on to step number 2. Decide if your number is closer to 1 perfect square or the next one. So we have the perfect square root of 4 and then we have the square root of 6 and then the perfect square root of 9, and so we know that the square root of 6 is in between those two numbers. So the next step is to write them down in order out of like square root of 4, square root of 5, square root of 6, square root of 7, square root of 8, and then square root of 9. And as you can see, the square root of 6 is closer to the square root of 4. So we are going to use, those are our perfect squares, and we are going to use the square root of 4. Okay, moving on to step number 3, you write down the square root of the closest perfect square. As stated on step 2, the square root of 6 is closer to square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is equal to 2, a whole number. And I know this because 2 squared equals to 4. So 2 times 2 equals to 4. That's how I know the square root of 4 is 2. Step 4. Make an educated guess to find the approximation. An educated guess means that we are going to guess with a number that makes sense. We are not going to throw this random number that has nothing to do with what we're doing. So we have to find, make a guess that makes sense with what we are doing. In this case, to make an educated guess, we are going to use the square root of 4 equals to 2. So we are going to use that number, the number 2, and a decimal to make the approximation. And the square root of 6 is not equal to a perfect square. Therefore, it means that the square root of 6 is equal to a decimal. And we need to find the closest to that decimal as we can. So we need to find an educated guess. And an educated guess in this case means using 2 because we know the square root of 4 is 2. And it's a decimal, so I'm going to go with 2.3 and see where that gets us. 2.3 square means that I have to multiply 2.3 times itself, times that same number, and see what decimal that gives me. Okay, so 5.29 is less than 6, which is good. We don't want to go over, but I want to try another number to see if I can get closer to 6, because 5.29 is closer to 5 than it is to 6. So let me find another decimal that's closest to 6. Next, I'm going to try 2.5. Oh, okay, 2.5 and square that, which means I have to multiply it by itself. So 2.5 times 2.5 and see if that gets me closest to 6 than 2.3 did. So 2.5 squared gave us 6.25. That went over. And whenever we are finding approximations, we do not want to go over. So 2.5 will not work out. So I have to maybe do 2.4 because it's in between. Let me try that. So after making an educated guess, these are my results. And 6.25 went over, so we are not going to use 2.5. So 529 and 527, 7 is greater than 2, so we are going to use that approximation because it's closest to 6. So the decimal 5.76 is closest to 6 than the other one, so we are going to use that one. Step 5, write down the approximation. The square root of 6 is close to the decimal 2.4, and that is our answer. So 2.4 is our answer. All right, so we are done. I will see you next time. Thank you.